Hello, my name is Greg Story. I'm the president of Dale Carnegie Training here in Japan. It's actually the weekend. I'm in the High Performance Center, hence no suit, no tie, looking a bit more casual than normal. But I want to talk a little bit about public speaking. Now, many people run away from the chance to give public speeches, and I was one of them. When I was much younger, one of my friends was getting married, asked me to be best man at his wedding. And did I jump at the chance and say, yes, great, I'd love to be best man at your wedding? No. I said, oh, no, look, I'm not really experienced enough to do this. So-and-so would be much better than me. The real reason, though, was I didn't want to have to get up there at that wedding and make a speech. And I was scared to talk in front of an audience. Why was I scared? Well, I didn't know how to make a speech. I was fearful that I'd be laughed at, or I'd make a fool of myself, or humiliate myself in front of other people. So I ran away from the chance, and it wasn't for many years after that until I actually made my first speech. And I remember my first speech. It was 1983 here in Tokyo. I was graduating from my master's degree at Georgia University, and the Sundai Yobiko, which is one of the Japanese cram schools for students trying to get into university, for some reason or other, I can't remember why now, they asked me to give a speech in Japanese to their students. And so with the help of my tutor, my Japanese tutor, I put together a speech, and it was supposed to be a 25-minute speech. I was so nervous. I finished the whole thing in 8 minutes. It was a disaster. And I read the whole thing. You know, I had the speech notes there in front of me, and I just looked down, didn't look at my audience, read the whole thing. My heart was pounding, you know, my voice was quivering. Oh, it was terrible. And 8 minutes done. And then I was lost. You know, what am I going to say now? Anyway, I made all the mistakes. No eye contact, no gestures, no pauses, no involving the audience. It was just dreadful. And so, did I learn from this near-death experience as a speaker? Did I go and get training on how to give a speech, you know, so that I wouldn't have to replicate this dreadful experience for the rest of my life? No. I just, you know, didn't do anything about it. I just sort of kept on going. And then, hard to believe that today I've actually given over 500 public speeches. And probably good 60-70% of those, I suppose, would have been now in Japanese. Now, I'm not a perfect speaker of Japanese. I'm not a native speaker of Japanese. I didn't start studying Japanese till I was 25 years old, so I came quite late to the party. And I don't have linguistic purity. But one thing I discovered, you don't have to be a perfect speaker. You don't have to be a perfect speaker in English, and you don't have to be a perfect speaker in Japanese to give speeches. Because there are other things in terms of communication which you can do. So if you are fearful of perfection and not being good enough to speak, well, take that fear away, because you don't have to be perfect, but you have to be prepared. And I think this is the difference. I learned over the years to be better prepared for my talks. Who's in my audience? What are the topics that are going to be interesting for them? Why am I speaking to this group? Am I entertaining them? Am I informing them, educating them? Am I trying to get them to do something, take some action? Am I trying to convince them of something? What am I trying to do here? And I think once you start to analyze the audience, that starts to help you to think about, well, okay, this is the audience, this is their interest, this is their degree of understanding of the subject, therefore I need to have a certain level for the complexity of this speech. And once you know that, then you can start thinking about how to arrange the speech. Now, many people, when they start a speech, they jump straight into the slides for the slide deck, and they start putting together the slide deck. Big mistake. That should be like the last thing that we should be doing. So where do we start? We should start probably with our final close of the speech, How are we going to wrap this up? Now, I say that because forcing ourselves to go to the key message we want to leave our audience with forces us to be very clear about what that exact message is. And then once we know, okay, this is how I want to wrap it up, this is the final message I want to get across, my close, then we can go back and start thinking about the structure of the speech. What will start, key point here, what's some evidence to back it up, what's another key point evidence. Now you can probably only, in a 20-30 minute speech, you're only going to get through a limited number, 4 or 5 maybe, key points with evidence, depending on how much detail you need to bring in. So it's not going to be elongated. And having sort of, how I'm going to finish key message, how I'm going to structure it, then you look at the opening. Now you sort of think, you start with the opening and work your way down. No. Start with the opening. Start with the close and then go back at the last part and do the opening. Why is that? Well, the opening has got a different role to everything else in the speech. When you think about yourself, everyone's busy today and we have lots of things going on in our mind, and people are walking around with their cell phones or mobiles, which are just, instant to the information highway right there. So they've got a lot on their minds and they've got distractions all the time. So even when they come into the room or they're in the meeting room or whatever we're going to speak, what are they doing? They're not chatting with anyone anymore. They're on their phone. They're checking their email. They're looking on, the internet. They're doing stuff. So they're not even in the room with us. So our job as a speaker and that opening is to grab them and keep them in the room with us and get them to listen to us, because if they don't listen, well, we have got no chance of getting our message across. So we've got to have something fairly dramatic in that opening that's going to really make them stop what they're doing and listen to us and give us their full attention. That's not easy. So the design for that is very important. You've got to have something that's going to break through all the distraction and all the competition for our attention. So that's, in design terms, very important. One thing I'll mention too, though, when I'm talking about the finish, the close, final impression, you're actually going to need to have a second one, not just a single one, a second one, because in between that will be Q&A. So sort of opening, key points, close, Q&A, final close. So again, work on that first impression with the opening, last impression with the close. It's very, very key. So having looked at all of those things, what about fear though? And as I said before, I avoided public speaking because I was scared, and I was scared because I was unprepared. Now, once you've worked out audience analysis, you've worked out key message, you've worked out the structure of your points and where you're going to go with this and how you're going to open, you're now in a much better position to have confidence about delivering this. So you're not lost on where you're going to go. And often, if we're using slides, they become like a type of index, like in a book, you'll have table of contents. It's a bit like that. It's like an agenda. It's like an agenda for the speech. So, start here, go there, because the slides work you through the whole speech. So you don't have to read from the notes. What's on the screen, you can talk to those points. Don't read the screen. That's terrible. I see people reading the screen, because that means I'm turning away from my audience and I'm reading off the screen, so I'm losing eye contact and losing connectivity with the audience. Stick with your audience. Don't read the notes, or you can look down. Just look down, next point, look up, start again. No one's going to say, oh, look, they looked at their notes. Oh, no one cares. What they care about is this interesting? Are you interesting? Is this relevant? So you can glance at your notes, pick up where you are on your next point, and away go. I was actually at an executive training course at Harvard Business School sent by my company many years ago. And I remember there was it was a 3-hour lecture given by one of these professors. No notes. Well, actually, that's not true. On the very back wall of this sort of amphitheatre, sort of tiered seating, on the very, very back wall, he had 10 words written down. And so he's facing the back wall and we're facing him, so we can't see it. His eyesight must have been pretty good from that distance. I couldn't do that today. But they were his speaking points. That was for him, if he forgot where he was going with his talk, and I'm sure he's given that lecture many times, but that was his segmentation of his talk. And a slide deck can be the same thing, or just points on a piece of paper in front of us could be our segmentation of where we're going. Keep the order of the speech. Now, here's another key thing. You might forget the order. You might, mix up and have this part go here when it shouldn't go there. Don't worry. Don't worry. You are the only person in that entire audience who knows that. Now, if you ever want to see a great meltdown, go onto Google or your search engine, search Michael Bay Samsung meltdown, and he's the director of all the Transformer movies, and he was brought in to give a talk on behalf of Samsung to promote this huge TV screen they have. And unfortunately for him, these teleprompters died for some reason. I don't know why they had teleprompters there. And he says, the teleprompter's gone down, well, I'll just have to wing it. And I'm not joking. 7 seconds later, he is turned away from the audience, his shoulders are crestfallen, he's looking down, and he's a broken man walking off that stage because he didn't know how to continue. Now, there were only 2 people on that, or in that auditorium, who knew what was the content. One was the MC, his partner on stage, and himself. Now, the audience had no clue what he was going to say. But when he said, the teleprompter's gone down, I'm going to wing it, then the audience immediately knows, he doesn't have anything prepared here. And he couldn't wing it. Now, he should have said nothing. Teleprompters weren't working. He should have just talked about making movies or what it inspired. It wouldn't have mattered what he talked about. No one in the audience would know. So same for us. If we get mixed up, don't show anything. Poker face. Don't let anything out that this is the wrong order. So these are very simple things, but often this is what's driving our fear. That people are going to think, we're hopeless. If you're prepared, you're not hopeless. If you're talking to your points, you're actually engaging with the audience and you know your stuff. You don't need to read every line. It doesn't have to be perfect English. Like I was doing speeches in Japanese, and my Japanese is not perfect, but I found I could communicate with the audience. And so in English, as a native speaker, for me, how much easier is that? And if you're a native speaker listening to this and watching this video, same thing. You have enough control of the language to talk about things. You just elongate a particular point in your notes. No one's going to worry. One thing about Q&A, when we get to Q&A, we've got to be a little bit cautious because we've been given time to speak, we've been given a place to speak, authority to speak, we've got the microphone, we're in charge, and we've got our time allotted. But when we go to who has the first question for Q&A, now it's a free-for-all because people can ask any question they like, may not even be related to what we've been talking about. They can make statements, they can make comments, they can be critical, they can do whatever they like. I have seen this where speakers are going quite well, and then they get a tough question. Now, it may not even be a nasty question, it may not be something trying to embarrass them, but they don't have a good answer for that. And instead of saying something like, well, that's a very good point, I haven't really thought about that, let me think about that and I'll come back to you on that. Who has the next question? And moving on, they struggle, and it's obvious that they're struggling. Or the questions come up and they are a bit harsh, and they suddenly, their equilibrium is lost and their confidence is drained out, and you can see the heart rate's going up and they're getting nervous all of a sudden. And then the credibility they had as the speaker of an authority point of view or expert person on that subject rapidly goes away. We don't want that. When we get to Q&A, we need to be in charge, regardless of the question, even if it's a really nasty one. You might have someone from the media there who wants to ask a real hard-hitting question. Could be someone from the labour union who wants to ask a very difficult question. Doesn't matter. Rival in your organisation hits you with a hard question. Senior board member hits you with a hard question in the meeting. Doesn't matter. There are means of dealing with that, and this is the thing that makes a difference. When you know how to deal with those hard questions, you're not fazed. You are cool, calm, and collected, and everybody sitting there goes, wow, if that had been for me, I would have died if I got that question. And he or she handled it so well. Oh, wow. Your credibility goes right through the roof then, because they know they couldn't do it. So this is one of the things that we need to know how to do that. And a good thing to do is to rehearse, and to rehearse the questions and rehearse the actual presentation itself before you get to the venue. And I mean not that day, I mean well before you get to the venue, because when you prepare it, that's an intellectual process, but when you have to deliver it, that's a physical process, and there's a timing thing, and there's a logic thing that when you're actually talking about it, that doesn't quite flow as well as this way, and you'll change things. But you'll only know to do that because you've been rehearsing it beforehand. Now, sometimes when I travel as a keynote speaker to give talks, I'm in a hotel room. I found that when I turn the lights out in the hotel room, the windows become like a mirror enough anyway, for me to see myself. And I use that mirror to give my imaginary audience the talk I'm going to give the next day. And I might run through that, 7, 8 times, over a period of time. Depends how long the speech is. But by doing that, I get the rhythm and I get the confidence of the points. Now, even though I do that, I get to the speech itself in a live audience, big audience, a couple of thousand people. Sometimes I forget the order. I'm going, to the order. I'm not reading it, and then I realise, I jumped the order here, but only I know, so I don't say anything, and I just bring that point back in. No one even notices. So even though you rehearse, it still doesn't mean it's going to go perfectly, but only you know. So don't tell anybody. Keep it yourself, poker face, and keep going. So, why aren't we doing a better job as speakers? Why are we avoiding them? Why are we fearful? Because we don't know what we're doing. Why don't we learn what to do? Why didn't I, as a young man, go and get the training after that just terrible fearful experience of having to say no to my friend's request to be the best man because I was scared, and my meltdown 8-minute for a 25-minute presentation here in Tokyo, and go and get training? I was stupid. I should have done that. I should have realized, you know what? This is a skill you need to have in life and in business, and I should go out there and get that skill. And I should have gotten the training, and I should have made the next couple of decades of my life much more stress-free and much more energizing and much more successful as a persuader and as a presenter and as an influencer and as a professional in my career. I would have done much better if I'd done that. What can we do? I tell you what you can do. Dale Carnegie here in Tokyo, we run a brilliant one-day program. One day, that's all. Give up one day. It's called Successful Public Speaking, and we will deal with all of the things I just covered in this video. And you can see the details here below. Sign up for this one day. We do it in Japanese, we do it in English, we do it in-house at your company if you wish to bring it in there, or you can just send people to our public course. It doesn't matter. There's lots and lots of practice, there's lots and lots of coaching. And what it does, though, it gives you the basics, the structure. I didn't talk much about visuals before, but a lot of people have terrible trouble with their visuals. We help you to sort out how to do the visuals properly so that in 2 seconds people can understand the key message of your visuals. Get all that stuff right. Then you're fully prepared to go and give that talk, and you're more confident. And confidence sells. And you get to the Q&A and you're still confident because you know you can handle anything anyone throws at you. So, any time, any topic, any audience, any location, you will be ready to go because you've had the right training to do that. So, let's see you on one of our successful public speaking training sessions. See you in the session, and let's change the dynamic. Let's take our opportunity to be in front of people and make it a winner for ourselves, for our companies, and for our careers. Look forward to seeing you on a program for successful public speaking shortly.